welcome to Real Talk with the Gile Group. We had done a podcast with Paivi Vargas, and one of the subjects and the way that you and I met was through helping a client to downsize. I had a client who had been in their home for 20 plus years, 25, 30 years, and she was looking to downsize. She was not, define elderly. I suppose being 55 plus,
yeah,
we are considered elderly, but I don't see us that way. And this person happened to be in their 60s, and so she had just been in her home for 20 to 30 years, and we worked together through Move Makers. You worked for Move Makers at the time to help people downsize. So we just thought we would talk about that today. If you are considering a downsize, whether you're in your 50s, your 60s, just a life change in general, going from more square footage and wanting to downsize. So those life changes that happen, let's talk about when we might want to do these kinds of things and start looking at that downsizing.
It is many times changes in the family. So there may be, if we are past the small children age, and maybe we can start in that. Your kids are starting school, and suddenly you need to define your space for them to have the study room. Or when kids go to college, and suddenly you are in a way half empty nester. Maybe you're expecting them to come back and maybe stay with you, or maybe you're expecting that now they are out and on their own, and now I have this space for myself. Or how do I need all this space? And sometimes it's the decisions that when this happens, then I want to change, and I want to live more minimalistic, or I don't need to maintain and clean all this space any longer. So
there's a lot to consider.
And then of course if your spouse ends up there's an accident or illness and suddenly you need to consider that can our space still sustain us living here when the spouse comes home, and maybe there is some time to recuperate from the whatever ailment, and or learn totally new ways to live if your spouse ends up in a wheelchair or needs a walker. So,
and then even if adult children are involved with one or both parents, and a move needs to happen to perhaps assisted living or even an independent living space with just smaller quarters. We've done all of those things together many times. And so that piece of it can be overwhelming. I know because I've experienced it firsthand, and I've helped clients work with it through it as well. And I think as a person, being an adult child, being a spouse, anyone, you get overwhelmed with all of the things to do. And not only are you overwhelmed, but you're also emotional. And so having someone help from the outside is a huge piece, whether that's a real estate agent or someone like you who comes in and starts discussing with the family. I've had those discussions with the family. I want to understand what my clients' goals are. Like, where can I help you? Where are you overwhelmed? And giving them one step at a time. And I think the earlier, just like with anything, the earlier we get to have those conversations in this process, the better. Because even 3-4 years out of deciding, we're going to make a move. We're probably going to make a move in the next 3 to 4 years, to start talking to someone like you who can walk them through the process where it's not so overwhelming, little pieces at a time.
Helping to really come into your decisions. What do I like? What do I not like? And what kind of life I want to live in that new space, or maybe it's dividing your space to share your space with the adult children or something, but just to take time and decide it, because many times we end up into those situations that the move is happening like in a month or in 2 weeks, and then it's just impossible to do all those things in a short moment.
We plan for a vacation. We plan when we have a baby.
Yeah.
We put a nursery together. We do all those things. Why do we not do that for ourselves when we're downsizing? We look at it, and me included, we look at it as in, we look at it as a bad thing. But what if we looked at it as an adventure? And that's really what I try and talk with my clients about when we have time. Now, sometimes we're in a crunch position, or it's like, okay, unfortunately, we've had a family member pass, we've had a parent or a spouse pass, so now we're really in crisis. And if we haven't been able to do any of those things before, we can step in, and one of the first things that I tell people to do is bring family in, right? And we have family come, and they go through the things that matter to them, collectibles, pictures, movies, and oftentimes I've mentioned consolidating those things. And that's something you could help them with, going through those things and saying, okay, what are we going to do with this? I've made a picture book, things like that, where it's a book and not boxes and boxes and boxes of things.
Or something.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the collectibles. That's one big item on people downsizing, because often the adult children may not be at all interested in the collectibles, or they may want a couple of pieces, but they don't have interest to inherit the whole collection. So meanwhile, you're still the one who remembers all the details. You may have even receipts and the files, how much you paid for it. You probably know where is there a market still on those. So instead of leaving it be put in the storage unit to be taking out a couple of years later, you could start doing the decisions that, okay, which are the favorite pieces, and then maybe do and sell the pieces that no one in the family is interested. Meanwhile, you still know you're a wealthy source of information for them, when maybe no one other in your family knows anything about it. And unfortunately, it happens that sometimes in the downsizes or when a parent comes either too ill or passes, and the children don't know anything about the collectibles, and they end up throwing away for thousands of value in dumpster, because you didn't know.
Or they don't know where to start, and they're overwhelmed.
They are overwhelmed,
and it goes into a storage unit. Exactly what you said. It's like, I'll deal with this later. That later for me, because I've been through this twice with parents, personally. So with me, that later became that for me was even more overwhelming than walking the path. Going through and doing the pieces that I needed to do, because having that hanging over my head, I don't enjoy that piece. So if we can have those conversations, and maybe even be able to frame it with our loved one who loves that collectible, and it means something to them, and it's some of the things are really interesting to be able to pass on the information and share some time together as a family, but also for that person who has the collectible to maybe know that it's going to a place that someone's going to value what that collectible is, as opposed to knowing, Mom, I wouldn't know what to do with this. Can you help me do this? I think that that's a good thing. It's hard. I think we avoid a lot of those conversations, but it's so important. We're living longer. Thankfully, we're living longer. Our parents are living longer. We're more active than like our grandparents and their parents before them. It's a different time. And so I think it's even more important to have those conversations, because I think my grandparents' generation, the funeral was planned, like all those things were like put a bow on it, but what about all the life up until that point? I think it's important to be able to be a part of that too.
And it doesn't need to be a collectible. It may be just the pieces of furniture that has been in the family for a long time, and having those conversations that, okay, well, this piece, this end table is something that maybe one of the kids have specific memory of, or it may be a niece if no one of the own children are interested. But in a way, planning for in beforehand. So okay, when I downsize, this piece goes to that person, and
Yes.
this piece goes to this person,
and having
and
that
all
conversation
that. Yeah,
and how
and
fun.
and the love of the sharing and remembering that why is it so special.
Yes.
And all that, it just gives more of the love of
And sometimes it's really silly little things.
it is,
You know, it's not the big thing that you think that it is. I mean, I have a teacup that my grandmother used to when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
I had coffee with my grandmother, which was a spoonful of coffee and a
Yeah.
bunch of milk, but it was my cup.
Yeah.
And I wanted that.
Yeah.
I have a I have a Santa
Yeah.
from the I think it's probably 1930s, stuffed, and my kids call it the creepy Santa because it looks a little different. And he stands, I don't know, about 2 feet tall, and he's stuffed, and I wanted him. I loved him when I was a kid. Again, my grandchildren are afraid of it.
Yeah.
But it's it's little things, and there's no value there. There's no value except my
not
sentimental
monetary.
value.
Yeah.
And I shared that with my grandmother, and I said I wanted those things. I didn't want her to leave, or I didn't want her to give it up if she wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But it was those were things I
moment.
wanted. You know, they're handfuls of things. It's not usually roomfuls of things, typically.
Yeah. I have a vase that I remember looking at my grandmother's place, and I always loved how it has little flowers painted on the side, and she was telling that that belonged to my mother and all that, and I was always saying that, can I someday have it? And yes, I do have it.
And you have it. And you get to enjoy it, and you got to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's
the anticipation of maybe someday getting it. It still gives me the sweet feeling.
I love that. And so I think perspective when we're talking to our family members and trying to come in with a sharing. And if you're thinking about downsizing, instead of trying to, thinking, I'm giving this up, I'm passing it on and looking at, do I really need this now? Let's go on to my next adventure where I can go wherever I want to go. I can visit wherever I want to visit. I can lock the door and leave and know I'm not worried about cleaning, 2,800 square feet or, look at the positives and be grateful.
In the change.
Yes, in the change.
Yeah.
Embrace the change.
And it is, like we always say, the proactiveness in starting to plan this, even if you don't have any timeline yet that this will happen in 2 years, but maybe it's just to in a way know that life changes. And the earlier you have some kind of confidence that whatever life brings up to me, I'm prepared and I know how to go further. So it doesn't need to be something that we start acting on, but to just bring up the conversation and start making notes maybe about things. Sometimes it's easy to do with the family, or sometimes it's easier to do without the family. So that's where
I've been there too, haven't I?
Professionals come into the space.
Yes, a neutral third party is often a really great thing to be able to bring in and sit down with that person and go through things. So also in planning the space, if you're closer to that downsizing time, be it a condo or an assisted living or an independent living within a community like that, being able to talk with you about what pieces are going to fit, what pieces I want, and you are really good. How do you visualize? How do you communicate that to your person? Like if I wanted to downsize,
it is many times in the conversations and going through the client's home. I in a way feel what is important to them, and I hear what they are saying, and then of course I need to know what kind of space they are moving to. So I just I have a passion for the spaces, and I know how things are looking, and that's not always easy for a client to see. They know that 100%. They love all these pieces, but they don't have the ability to see them in the new space, and by taking everything, it just doesn't work in the smaller
it won't
space.
Fit.
So
when we're working with those people to identify if we're selling a house, right, that is smaller, they're going from 2,800 square feet to maybe 1,700 square feet. Even my talking with them is, how are you going to live in this space when I'm showing them a house?
That's a brilliant question.
Yeah, and I ask that of my buyers all the time. When we're in a home, it's like, oh, you know, I'm seeing that they like this, they like a flow. And then I'll go, okay, I want you to stand in this house and I want you to picture I'm coming home from wherever I've been. Yeah. This is how I'm going to cook my dinner. This is where I'm going to bring in my groceries. This is how I'm going to sit on a Sunday morning. Yeah. Whatever those things are, live in your head in this house.
In beforehand.
Yes. Yeah. Before we write an offer, before we're in the middle. Because I want you to be happy with what you have. Yeah. And I want that home to be that safe space for you and that welcoming and inspirational space for you. So I think that that's important for my piece of it, to help them understand how they're going to live. And that's, you said, visualizing. Yeah. That's part of the reason why we stage properties. It's part of the reason why when we're selling, we're pulling things out of that space so other people can visualize how they're going to live. And they don't often know, well, that table is not going to fit in that space, or that couch is not going to fit in that space, which is where you come in and real helpful with that. Yeah. And then being open to going, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Working in that way. So collectibles, deciding what you're going to take with you. Yeah. And then kind of the third and fourth piece is the things that are left over that family doesn't want.
Yeah. What happens to that?
What happens to that? That family, we've gone through now. We've decided what we're keeping. We've decided what we're bringing to our new place. What happens with all those things that are left over, and how can you help with that?
That is a hard thing many times. There are not too many places that accept materials or furniture pieces, because we are living in this world of overflow. So unless you have really well-made items that are in good condition, you may be able to sell them, consign them, or find the new owners for them. But then when there is a lot of this everyday stuff that, in a way, everybody already have that. So then it's the process of finding whether your neighborhood, maybe somebody there could use it, put it on the side of the street, or advertise it in the Facebook groups or next door, whatever avenues, and ask with your friends, ask their friends, and many times it just ends up to be a collection of items that we didn't find a place for them and they need to be hauled away. So that's something that sometimes there are several options. We need these items to be taken to consignment, these to donations, and then the rest of it needs to go to a dump in a responsible way. Not everything needs to go to dump. Some can be recycled.
Yes.
There are artists that take some materials
and repurpose them. Lots of things to do. But some of it does go to the dump. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Ultimately, they are things, and so they have to go somewhere. They have to be dispersed. So how long does it take if I'm in... Obviously, we want to have the conversation way early with you. If we know we're going to be planning a move, there's nothing wrong with a conversation and information and starting that process. That's ideally where we would like to be. But if we're in crisis, or we've now made the decision that a move is going to be made, how quickly can that be done?
Well, it in a way varies with the project. It's of course with the deadline of the move when it needs to happen. But depending on the size and how much items you have, it may be a couple of weeks or it may be a couple of months. It's all, and it's also depending how easy you have making the decisions. Yes. Because the more attached you are, the more hesitant you are to make the decisions or go into those memories that are so making it so hard to make the decisions. If some people are really light, not so attached to their items, they are more attached to the memories, and they will have it easier to say that, okay, this was fun, but now it's another thing. So it may be just a couple of weeks and you are ready to go, and it may be a couple of years and you're still not ready to go.
Yes, and that's that process, and that's that having that conversation and fine line. So if you're someone who's considering downsizing, have that conversation now. If you're more in a crisis, or you're like, okay, the time has come, we are definitely moving to a community that we need to be able to either have some assistance, or we're independently living there but can continue the rest of our lives in that space, and you're more to that point of making that decision, that's definitely something where I can come in and start to help and bring in someone like Paivi or the company that we work with, Move Makers, to be able to help you walk through that process. It can truly be done. I mean, I've done it. Once the decision is made, the biggest thing is getting the family in and removing the things, the items that absolutely no one does. We just don't want to lose. We want to make sure that that's, and then once we turn that property over to Move Makers or to you to help coordinate all of that, I've cleared a home in a week. Not myself, but the team that we've put together has cleared a home in a week. So it's really the most important thing is being in the place that you have made the decision, and then being able to move forward and know that people can clear and help you put the team together, facilitate that.
And also accept the fact that I may not be able to do all this packing and moving by myself. It's good to admit that, okay, I can actually enjoy this move when I let some other people to take parts of it that I don't enjoy. Like how many of us really want to be packing all those crystals and thinking that will they go safely with the movers or not. So use the professionals in those pieces that you don't absolutely love yourself.
Yes, it having the professionals really matter, no matter what realm you're working in. I have a friend who's just getting her house painted now, and they were in and out in 2 days. And I'm like, and it would have taken yourself a week to do all of that. At least. So having a professional is super important. I just kind of want to end a little bit with the memories piece. You mentioned the memories and knowing that you're happy with the memories. And that's one of the things that I tell my clients is that you take the memories with you. The house is not the memory. The things are not the memories. It's you. It's within you, and you take that with you. When my daughters were working to help my ex-in-laws move, they realized in going back to that house that they loved so much when their grandparents were there, that the change and the move, grandparents were still here. It wasn't the house. It was the experiences and the memories of the house. And so that, remember that piece, that the memories stay with you. The house is just a structure. The things are just things. It's that memory that you take with you, which is really important.
And the memory that you can many times still share, either with the person you created that memory with, or you may be sharing the memory with your own children, telling about how wonderful it was to visit the grandparents and how the life was then. You still can use those memories and cherish them without having the actual pieces, the atoms they are made out of.
The things, it's all here and here. Absolutely. So, well, I think that's a good note to end on. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have questions or you're looking to downsize, reach out to us or send us a DM or comment. We are happy to always talk. Thanks for watching our podcast today, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media.
Have questions about the real estate market? Send us an email at askgilegroup@gilegroup.com, or give us a call or shoot us a text.